Welcome to my channel. This is going to be the first video that I put on this booktube account. My name is Bethel and I'm going to be doing, as my first video, a review of all the books I read in May. I feel very passionate about the selection of books I read and I want to talk about it, especially the ones that I did not like. I just have more to say about those, so let's get started. So I now have a Kindle, and there are, most of the books I read this month were on my Kindle, so I'm going to just kind of go through each book and give my review of it, give it a more in-depth review. So the first book that I read was Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, which is the first book of the series. There are many books in this series, and when I went into it blind. I only saw Zodiac, and because I like astrology, I figured this would be a series that, you know, I'd vibe with. I'd be like, yeah, you know, you got on the cover the Gemini twins, and when I first started reading the book, I thought it was really interesting. I thought the premise of it was very interesting. You follow these two twins, Darcy and Tori, and they are essentially orphans. They are in a foster home, and they meet Orion. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. They come across this man who's a teacher at the Zodiac Academy, who is essentially like, y'all are the Lost Vega twins. We need to have you come to the school. What I really didn't like about this first book is the four celestial heirs are these four guys who their parents, because Tori and Darcy's parents died, they were the king and queen of whatever this world is. And so these four guys, Caleb, Darius, Malcolm? Oh god, I don't remember their names. I don't remember. They're all jerks though. And if you're not about the bullying trope, this is not going to be for you. Let me tell you this right now. If you're not about the bullying trope, don't read it. Don't read it. I did not know. I also didn't know that this was a dark romance, so the things that were happening, I wasn't expecting it. So despite me really not liking the first book, I wanted to give it a chance. I wanted to see if I would change my mind because the premise of this was really interesting. There's werewolves, there's vampires, there's sirens, there's all kinds of fantasy stuff that you could want in this book. So I was like, let me give it a second chance. Let me read the second book. And so I read the second book, which I believe is Ruthless Fae, and things got a little bit better for them at times, but also didn't. I found myself having high blood pressure, honestly, reading this series. I really did. I really did. I'm not even kidding. I would constantly be checking my heart rate, like, are you there? Are you there? Because I'm really stressed right now. So I have not many great things to say. I really don't remember most about this book, except I really just tried to finish it as quickly as possible so I could get to the third book, The Reckoning, because that's kind of what was leading up to, there were a lot of things in the book leading up to The Reckoning, and I had hopes that The Reckoning would be good, which is the third book in the series, and this is a spoiler, okay? There's a romance. I didn't want the twins, any of the twins, to be effing with any of the four celestial heirs who've been bullying them. Okay, they're ops. They're ops. So why are we building up a romance with Darius and Tori? Although I did like her with Caleb, so you know what, I'm a hypocrite. I don't have much to say about the third book except I read it, and then I had a friend tell me, you know, you don't have to continue on, and she was the voice of reason for me to stop putting myself through this pain. I'm not expressing my distaste for this book to come off elitist or anything. It doesn't take much for me. However, this book, sometimes it's good to read the summary. Sometimes it's good to see a little review before you decide to jump in. So that's just my take. The next book that I read is the second book to The Serpent and the Wings of Ruin. I don't do well when it comes to series if I don't read it immediately after. So when I did read the second book, I had a little bit of like, oh, let me remember. I need to remember what was going on and how we got here. So I had a little bit of that when I first started reading it, but I was really happy with it. I gave it a 5 stars. The next book is Vicariously Yours by Jamie Applegate Hunter, and this is a very short, standalone fantasy, fated mates. The guy is Fae royalty, and you find out when you're 13 who your fated mate is, and his happens to be a human. So he writes letters to her, and you follow them up until they meet each other at 25, and it's just so good. There was also, the spice was crazy in this. It was very quick. It was a nice relief after reading Zodiac Academy, and because at this point I was reading 3 Zodiac Academy, which is long fantasy books, and then the second book to The Serpent and the Wings of Ruin, that was also a pretty lengthy book. So this was a nice, short, spicy book, and I also recommend this. I give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. The next book that I read on the Kindle is The Crowns of Oaths and Curses by J. Bree. This book, now oddly enough, I give it a very, very high review. However, you will be mad reading this. You will be very mad. So it stars Rook, who is a witch, and people don't F with witches in this world. They really don't. And her mate, this is also a mate. I love fated mates. I love fated mates, just so you know. Her mate, who I can't even pronounce his name, Soren, name starts with an S. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Okay, hates witches. He really hates witches. This book was a true enemies to, this first book, I'm gonna give you a warning, not really spoiler, or maybe it is a spoiler. They are enemies. There is no spice in this book. Don't expect any chili peppers. I'm sorry, but it was good. It was good. You will get mad though. It enacted a lot of emotions in me, and yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Very good. Recommend. The next book I read immediately after, because I read the first book, and then a few days later the second book released, The Throne of Honor and Blood, and this is a spoiler, so you can ignore the next 5 seconds when I say this. I wanted him to grovel so much for how he treated her in the first book, and I was not disappointed. However, it's really long. I think this book was 700 pages, so there were times where I was like, what we doing? Can we, you know what I'm saying? So that was my only thing. It felt very long, but the end gagged me. The same with the first book. The ending gagged me. You will be gagged reading these books. So yeah, I give that one a 3 out of 5, just because the length was a bit much for me. The next one is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I actually listened to this one on an audiobook on Spotify. I've been opposed to audiobooks in the past, but because I had it included with Spotify Premium, and I didn't want to pay $30 for the book, I was like, let me give it a try. And the voice person, I don't know the word for someone who's the audiologist, very good. She did a very good job. I'm a big fan of Emily Henry. I love the way she writes. I love her sarcasm. I love the little banter that she puts. And their chemistry, Daphne and Miles. The spice, I give it a 3 out of 5. 4 out of, I don't know, it was good. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. And the last book that I didn't read like physically is Fast by Millie Belizaire. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. I'm sorry. I'm not one to be good at pronunciations, so please don't mind me. This book, I give it a 6 out of 5, but I will tell you there are a lot of trigger warnings you're gonna need to be aware of before you read it. You basically follow her life from when she was 8 years old to 16 to 28. And she goes through something pretty horrific. As you follow her life, it's very interesting. It's very, very much well written. I give that one, like I said, a 6 out of 5. So now that we're done with the Kindle and the audiobooks, let's get to the physical books that I read. The first one is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book to the Caravel series. This one focuses on Tessa and Legendary. And what I will say, I read Caravel the month before. 5 out of 5, 6 out of 6, 10 out of 5. Amazing. Incredible. I love it. If you liked the show Once Upon a Time, these series, the way that Stephanie Garber writes, the magic in it is very much like that. I felt very immersed in this world. It's hard to go into too much details about this without talking about Caravel, but I give this a 5 out of 5. It was amazing. It was great. The next one I read was Finale, which is the third book to the Caravel series, and this one was also great. However, so one thing I have to say is I see why people say before you read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, you really should read Caravel, because Jax is in here, and there's a lot of love triangle things going on. I don't like love triangles, so that was a little bit hard, but I liked everything else. But I don't really like love triangles, so there was a little bit of that here, but really in this. That's with that. Anyways, next is Once Upon a Broken Heart. Jax is quite, how do I describe him? Very much grumpy sunshine between the two. So when I really like a book, I don't have much to say because it was just good. And that's how I feel. But when I don't like a book, I'm just gonna have more to rant about. So I just don't have much to say except for like, I liked it. I liked the ride. It was fun. I don't have anything literally or I don't have anything impactful to say except like, I just liked it. It was fun. The same for The Ballad of Never After. I had a good time. I had a good time. So what is there? If I have something to complain about, I'm gonna have a lot to say. Hence Zodiac Academy, why I just was all over the place. But I also just enjoyed the ride reading this. This was fun. Lastly, Ties That Tether. This book, I so badly wanted to enjoy this. It was hard. I finished it. I didn't even there were moments where I was gonna just not finish it, but I'm very stubborn, and I own this book, although I will sell it. Where do I even begin? I don't like the pregnancy trope unless it's either in the epilogue or it makes sense with the story, if you get what I'm saying. And I feel like the way the pregnancy trope was done in this didn't make sense. But it just felt very rushed. I didn't feel like the author built the chemistry well between the girl and the guy. Essentially what this book is about is, her name is, I can't pronounce her name, so I'm not even gonna try to butcher it. She is Nigerian, and she moved to Canada at around the age of 12. Her dad died, and the last thing she told her dad before he died is that she would marry a Nigerian man to uphold the culture and continue that. So when she is about, I guess I'm gonna say she's like 28, I don't know, late 20s, she, to please her mom, has been going on these blind dates with these Nigerian men, and it hasn't been working out. So she ends up at the hotel lobby or bar, somewhere she's drinking, and she meets Raphael, who is white, and they have a one-night stand, and she ends up pregnant. And then she goes to work, and he now works at her job. He works at her job. I think the way that I think the premise of this is interesting. The way it was executed, not for me. So I gave it a 3 out of 5, but the more I mull over it, I'm gonna give it a 2. Alright, so that is my review of all the books I read in May. I read a total of 14 books. I've been trying to average about 18 to 20, so this was a little bit on the lower end, but May was a busy month, so I'm gonna give myself props for reading 14 books, especially 4 that I didn't like. I didn't even not finish them. I read through. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've enjoyed them, if you disagree with me. I'd love to see it. But anyways, I hope you have a beautiful day and I will see you next time.